just got a few minutes delayed, so how to be more aware. How to be more aware. We are coming live via Facebook streaming and also via YouTube streaming. We are not yet on Facebook live streaming. This video, this talk, you will be able to get on YouTube, and the link you will get on Facebook page. How to be more aware. The only way is practice awareness. Practice awareness, but you have to begin with mindfulness. Mindfulness means when you speak something, you know what you have spoken, you are responsible for it. You are not mechanical, no words emerge as a process of mechanism. By becoming more aware, one becomes more aware. This is how it is. There is no other way to it. It is a simple process. Whatever you are doing, doesn't matter what you are doing. You are speaking, I am speaking. Before that, I have to establish the connections, and with that, make sure that all connections are intact, and then can begin the session. Whatsoever you are doing, big or small, do it with such consciousness as if it is a question of life and death, as if a sword is hanging over your head. A sword is hanging over your head from the ceiling, tied with a very thin thread. There is a danger that any moment it can fall with the weight of the sword. There is a beautiful story that happened during the time of King Janak. Janak actually means the creator, and Janak also means the yajna, the yagya, when an Hindu performs a holy act of sacrifice. In this, three things are required. We consider yajna as a Hindu act. In yajna, sacrificial fire, there are three things very important. One is clarified butter, then it is the black onion seeds or sesame seeds, and the third is the grain with husk. Now these things are symbolic. Clarified butter represents the fluid, and your monetary resources, the wealth, is fluid-like. One moment it is with you, next moment it is not. It represents your resources, your wealth, your capabilities. Black seeds represent the mind. And the grain with husk represents the body. So when a fire is lit and these three things are offered into it, it creates an aroma because of all these things being poured into it, and that purifies. This is the physical aspect of yajna. But you can perform each act in that spirit that your body, mind, and wealth is involved. It does not matter to what religious practice do you belong. You can be from a Muslim faith or Christian faith or Zoroastrian or Tao or anything, that does not matter to me. I am giving you the deepest aspect of anything. You can follow it as a ritual, then it becomes a Hindu practice. When you perform each act, is it not that when you are performing your act, your body, mind, and wealth has to be there? When first time you go to the place of your worship, your wealth goes and the body goes, then mind goes, and wherever wealth goes, the mind follows that. So when you are performing an act in that spirit, it is a holy act. It is with your totality you are performing the act. These are the three faculties: the body, the mind, the spirit. And when you are performing that, it becomes a yajna. If you understand this meaning, you can observe that whenever there is an action that you are going to perform, big or small, it is in that spirit, with that understanding. So Janak means that gives birth. And Janak is also the name of the father of the character Sita in Hindu scripture Ramayana. An important character. He attained to wisdom in the company of sage Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra, the name when it is given to someone, it signifies something. It represents the innerness of an individual. Asht means 8, Vakra means curve. Physically, his body was bent at 8 places, and you can imagine when you see a person handicapped and he is not able to walk properly, naturally a smile or laughter comes out of you watching him walk on the street. But if someone is bent, body is bent at 8 different places, naturally you must laugh. So Ashtavakra, because of his austerities that he performed, his body got deformed at 8 places. and he was the one in whose company Janak got awakening. He wanted to know that which is and that which could be taught in a moment, not over a period of the process of 10, 15 or 20 years or reading through the scriptures. No, it is a live experience, aliveness. He wanted to get the experience of awakening, and he had his conditions. First condition was that it should be performed between sunrise and sunset. That is a period of 12 hours. Second, he will have a well-saddled horse. He will have his one foot on one side of the saddle, and as he moves his foot over the horse back to reach the other side and settle on the horse back. During that period of time, this wisdom should be given to him. Janak was ready. Ashtavakra. I am just giving you this story in short as a reference to Janak to understand what he represented. So it happened as soon as Janak was ready, the horse was ready. He said, Janak, ride the horse. As he put one foot on the side of the saddle and was ready to cross over, he said, wait, Janak, do not cross over to the other side until you answer my question. There are many aspects of it. Depending on the situation, I take the different examples. He said, before you cross over to the other side, tell me, where are you? Are you on the ground or not? Imagine he is trying to ride the horse. One of his feet is on the left side. That is how normally a horse rider rides. He puts his left foot on the left side of the saddle, takes the other feet over to the other side, crossing the back of the horse. Tell me, Janak, where are you? On the ground or not on the ground? How would you answer this question? Your feet is, one feet is on the saddle, one side, and the other is in the air. He could not answer. He said, in a way, Ashtavakra said, in a way, you are standing on the ground, and in a way you are not. Imagine the situation and then try to go into this meditation. In a way you are on the ground. How he is on the ground? He has his one foot on one side of the saddle of the horse, but horse is standing on the ground. It is touching on the ground. So there is connectivity with the ground. Though it is indirect, but it is there. You are connected to the ground, to the earth. And he is not on the ground because his feet is in the air. This is the situation, he said, is that of awakened. This is awakening, this is knowledge, this is wisdom, or whatsoever you may call. You are a balance between the two. You are like the tree that is well deep rooted in the earth, and its leaves and branches swing in the air. It connects the two. Just before coming for this session, I created a photo image that read, life is a balance. Life is a balance. Someone has asked question, what is life? How would you define life? You may give a theoretical answers, but I give you very simple. Life is an experience between expectation and experience. When day begins, you have many expectations. You want those expectations to be fulfilled, isn't it so? But it does not happen that all your expectations are fulfilled that particular day. Some are finished and others are not. And in the end of the day, what you get? Experience. Life is a balance between expectation and experience. You begin the day with expectation and end with experience. Isn't it so in simple words? Life is a balance between expectation and experience. If you can bridge the two, the expectation and experience. Normally what happens when expectations come and they are not fulfilled, you get frustrated, you get stressed. If you allow these to be the experiences in your life, then you are on a new voyage, an inward voyage. So life is a balance between the two. Now this is, when you ponder over it, very simple. This is how life happens. You capture that simplicity of life into a message. So Janak was that character who was in the body, but his consciousness was bodiless. It happened that one day a sage, an ancient master, sent one of his chief disciples to the court of Janak to learn something which was missing in the young man. You go to the class, you learn something theoretical, but that understanding, that knowledge, what you learn does not become your understanding unless you go to the practical experience, into the workshop. So those two things are coupled with. You are taught the theoretical aspect of anatomy, then you are sent to lab to experiment on your own, that what you have learned theoretically deepens in you. So this particular disciple was not able to capture what the master was telling him, so he decided to send this disciple to the court of Janak to learn more. The young man, when he was being sent, said, "If you cannot teach me, how is that possible that this man Janak can teach me? You are a great sage, and he is only a king. What does he know about meditation and awareness and all that relates to the innerness?" The question comes to the mind of the person. You are sending me to a person who is a businessman, who talks, whose day is spent in looking after the business. He is in the business of managing the affairs of the kingdom. The sage said, "You simply follow my instructions. Do not question. Go to him, bow down to him. Be not egoistic, thinking that you are a seeker, a sannyasi, and he is an ordinary householder, a king. He lives in the world. He is worldly, apparently, and you are spiritual. Spirituality is within, the inner dimension, and worldly life is the outer dimension. If you can balance the two, it is a great benediction. He lives in the world, he is worldly, and you are spiritual. Forget all about it. I am sending you to him to learn something. So for this moment, he is your master, and I know. I have tried in this classroom, in this sanctuary, in this ashram, but you could not understand because you need a different kind of an environment, a different context to understand what I am teaching you. And the court of Janak is his palace. That will give you the right context, because he is king there. He has to follow the kingly splendor and all that relates to that kind of awareness. So simply go, bow down to him. For these few days, Janak will represent me, he will be your master. The disciple was very reluctant, but he went. He was Brahman by caste, who are considered to be of highest domain. And what was this Janak? He was rich. He had a great kingdom. But what could he teach to a Brahman? This is ignorance. Brahman always think that they can teach the people, but what can they learn from others? Their whole life, their whole profession is that of teaching. This brings arrogance as well. And Janak was belonging to a warrior clan, the warrior race. They are thought to be second to the Brahmins. Brahmins were the first and the foremost, the highest caste. To bow down to this man, question comes to the mind. This has never been done, a Brahmin bowing to the one of the warrior clan. It is against the Indian mind. But the master has said it, so it has to be done. Reluctantly, in the first place he went, and reluctantly he bowed down to the King Janak. And when he bowed down, he was really feeling very angry with his master, because the situation in which the master has put him and he had to bow down was so ugly in his eyes. It was a palace. The court was going on. There were music and dance going on in the palace. Janak was sitting in this group of the dancers and singers. The young man had such condemnation for all these things. This is what happens when the spiritual, someone begins to follow the spiritual path. They become skeptical of this and that. They have many do's than don'ts, many don'ts than do's. This should not be done. You should put on a particular garb. You should act this way or that. All these are superfluous and has nothing to do with inwardness. The young man had condemnation for all such things, and now he has to bow down. That's why the master said Janak's palace will have a context which will be the most appropriate to teach you. He laughed. Janak laughed and said, "You need not bow down to me when you are carrying deep within condemnation in your heart. And don't be prejudiced before you have experienced me. We judge what we see. We do not wait to experience the situation. You have not taken time to experience my presence, but you saw me in a particular situation and you are judgmental. You are judgmental because you are watching the physical conditions, situations surrounding, but not experiencing what the person is all about. How can you experience the person? By listening to him, by interacting with him. When he speaks, his gestures, the peace that surrounds him, something that connects you with him, that bridges you with. That is the experience. And unless you go into experience, you cannot judge the person. So Janak said, don't be prejudiced before you have experienced me. Your master knows me well. That is why he had sent you here. He had sent you to learn something. When you come to learn something, you must be respectful to the person with whom you are going to learn. If you have doubts, if means you have blocked, you are not open, there is no way his consciousness to bridge yours. There is no way that the process of osmosis can take place. For osmosis to take place between the two solutions to balance their concentration, there has to be a semi-permeable membrane. And when the two solutions of different concentration are separated from a semi-permeable membrane, the flow begins. The young man said, I do not care. He sent me, that is why I have come. But by morning I will go back, because I don't see that I can learn anything in this environment. In fact, if I learned anything from you, watching what you are engrossed into, my life will be wasted. I have not come here to learn dancing and singing, drinking, and seeing the beautiful woman dancing and all this indulgence. Janak still smiled and said, you can go in the morning, but since you have come, you are so tired, at least rest for the night and go in the morning when it comes. And who knows, the night may become the context of the learning for which your master has sent you to me. It is the wisdom of the master, of the awakened one, that he chooses the ordinary situations to explain the deepest matter. This particular incident I have explained in many different ways. Now this was very mysterious. How could the night teach him anything? How could night be the context for him to learn for which he has been sent? Doubts arose in his mind, but okay, he said to be here for the night, because he cannot leave in the night. It's not a flight that he came with, or he has his transport waiting outside. He had to wait for sun to rise, and then he can begin his journey. So he did not make much fuss about it. He remained. The king arranged for him to have the most beautiful room in the palace, the most luxurious one. He went with the young man, took every care of his food, his sleep, and when he was going to take to rest, Janak left. But the young man could not sleep the whole night, because when he looked up, he could see a naked sword hanging from the ceiling, tied up with a very thin thread just above his head. Now it was so dangerous to lie on the bed, when any moment that sword could fall and kill the young man. The bed was exactly under that, and where the sword was pointing, that was hanging from the ceiling, his head lay. So he could not keep his eyes away from that. When he opened his eyes, he's seeing the sword. When he closed his eyes, he's seeing the sword. He's seeing the danger all around. Fear came into him. This is how the life is. Before we enter into any situation, we have many doubts. You are asked for something, but you have many doubts. Fear what will happen with this, with that. So you do not enter into the unknown realm. And a spiritual journey is, the trust arises in you when you enter into the unknown realm without any doubt, willingly, lovingly, and joyfully. So he remained awake whole night. He could not sleep, watchful, that if any time sword is trying to slip from the thread, he can just very quickly to move to the other side, so that sword does not help. But he could not keep his mind away. He was so watchful so that he could avoid the catastrophe if it was going to happen. In the morning, when King asked, was everything okay? The bed was comfortable, the room was comfortable, so on and so forth. The young man said, comfortable? What do you mean? Everything was comfortable. But what about the sword? And why did you play such a dirty trick with me, hanging a naked sword over my head? It was so cruel. I was tired after days' journey. I had come on feet from far away sanctuary of my master in the forest, and you played such a cruel joke with me. What kind of thing is this? To hang a naked sword with a thin thread over the head of a guest? I was afraid that with a small breeze, the sword may fall and I am gone, and I am finished. I have not come here to commit suicide. The king said, I want to ask you one thing. This question, listen to it very carefully. I want to ask you one thing. You were so tired. You could have fallen asleep very easily, but you could not fall asleep. What had happened? What had happened? The danger was so prominent, so great. It was the question of life and death then. Hence you were so alert. It is only when a question of life and death that awareness comes. Life and death means when life is known to you, although not fully, but yet still it is known to you. And death is unknown to you. Because you have not known life, how could you know death? Someone asked what happens after life. So I had to tell him, do you know anything what happens before death? Learn that first, what happens before death, then you will not ask the question, what happens after life? Hence you are aware, alert. This is my teaching as well. You can go if you want. You can stay for a few more days to watch me. Although I am sitting here in the court where beautiful women are dancing, there is singing and dancing congregation, I was alert to the naked sword hanging above my head. Any moment death may come. And when death comes, am I connected to my innerness, or I am connected to the boss who had given me the problem in my life, who had been so miserable? Is my focus is on that or on my innerness? I was so alert of the naked sword above my head. You could not see it, but it is hanging. It is invisible, and the name of this sword is death. When the finite disappears into the infinite, when the drop merges into the ocean, and the merging of the drop in the ocean is its willingness, its joy. Mirza Ghalib uses a beautiful word, Ishrat-e katra hai darya mein fana hona. He uses the word ishrat. Ishrat means willingness. When you are entering into changing gear from one consciousness to another, when you change your gear in the car, Is it compulsion or is it out of your own free will, your joy? Whenever you are doing it, changing the gear to move from one situation to another, it has to be out of your joy, fulfillment, not a process of compulsion. इशरते कतरा है दरिया में फना होना. It is my ultimate pleasure, my joy, my willingness to drown in the ocean. The drop trembles at that moment. Yet still there is tremendous trust that once it dissolves, in a way it is death, but in another way it is rebirth, resurrection. And there is tremendous beauty when the drop merges in the ocean. It actually dives, if I put it in a way. The drop dives into the innermost depth of the ocean like a diver. It disappears for some time, then he comes out onto the surface with something very precious from deep within the depth of the ocean, the jewels, the precious. This is what happens, and the drop becomes oceanic. So this sword, whose name is death, is invisible. I was not looking at the young woman. Just as you could not enjoy the luxury of the room, your mind was not there. Your mind was the sword which was visible to you, hanging over your head. I was not drinking the wine, I was just aware of the death which could come any moment. And when it comes, death does not ask how many scriptures you have read, how many times you did your kalma or your mantra. It says in that particular moment, when I am coming, are you aware or not? That time, your books, your knowledge, your recital of kalma is irrelevant. I was constantly aware of the death, hence I live in the palace, and yet I am a hermit. Your master knows this. He understands me. He understands my understanding too. He understands me and he understands my understanding as well. That's why he had sent you here. If you live here for a few days, you can watch on your own. You ask me how to become more aware. Become more aware of the precariousness in life. Death can happen any moment. The next moment it may knock on your door. You remain unaware if you think that you are going to live forever. How can you live unaware if death is always close by? You are not hearing its footsteps. Impossible. If life is momentary, if life is like a soap bubble, just pin a prick and the soap bubble is gone forever. How can you remain unaware in such a situation? Bring awareness to each act. Bring awareness to each word that emerges out of you. Walking on the road, walk fully alert. Eating, eat with awareness. Whatsoever you are doing, do not let the past or the future interfere with you. The past is no more, future has not yet come in, this very moment is blissful. You are with me this very moment. It is blissful. Let this moment be all. You are in the arms of the unknown and unknowable. Let this moment fill you with the vastness of that which is surrounding you. Do not let the past or the future to interfere. Be in this moment, live this moment, be it, be the present, and dissolve in the vastness of this moment. This moment is so eternal that it can take you to something that you have never known or experienced. As the words overflow, with the words comes a dancing silence. You allow this to enter you freely. That is what awareness is all about. Nothing else. I am speaking to you. You are with me. You are watching me. But for some strange reasons, I am not watching you physically, but I am watching you, watching the energy that you are. Let this moment be the moment of awareness. That is what life is all about. That is what awareness is all about. And that is all that you need to do. Only this much for this morning. Take care. Until tomorrow, be blissful. Be joyful. Remember, life is a balance between expectation and experience. You begin the day with expectation and end with myriad experiences. Only this much for this morning. Take care.